Hi, everybody. Today is Wednesday, July the 22nd of 2020, and it is Rudy's Psychic Meetup. And today, of course, we have Rudy. Rudy, what do you have lined up tonight?
Hey everyone. Well, we have one main topic tonight that's going to take us down all kinds of woo-woo roads. We're going to talk about movies and TVs that get the woo-woo stuff right. Sam, I know you have some experience. And then we have quite a few questions. And wouldn't you know it, Sam, a couple of the questions actually deal with one of the movies that I bring up, and I didn't publicize it before. So it's always funny how that works out, where a lot of us are on the same thread.
Yeah,
So
that was one of the things in the movies that I was like, oh my gosh, this is just like what happens on the Discord channel where
yeah.
people are having dreams about one another. And then when you say it on there and people are like, oh my God, that's me. That's what happened to me.
Well, I got a list we'll go through, and I guess we'll start off with one that you had mentioned a couple weeks ago around a Netflix series called Warrior Nun. Now, this is the one about, I guess, kind of some common themes here with a reluctant hero that has a gift, but quite a few things from the woo-woo side that seem to be true. So, do you want to just tell us about what you were told within that series is correct?
Yeah, well, this was, during the COVID-19 when nothing is open and you're searching for things to watch that, if your kids walk in, it's
Yeah.
not like a huge deal, right? So there's a series on Netflix called Warrior Nun, and it's not normally the type of show that my husband and I watch because, we're an older couple. And I just was drawn to it for some reason. Now, I haven't been able to watch like the whole series. I've been gotten very busy. But during the first couple of series, one of the things that caught my eye about it is that they talk about something that I talked about and explained, and that is about how dark entities who feed off our fear and anxiety. I talk about that in my animated video
Mhm.
about just kind of explaining how I'm a medium, like how I do my job
Right.
to connect people with their loved ones on the other side or get important information for them to make sure that, they turn right when they were going to turn left, right?
Yeah.
Because, the family members on the other side are very interested in ensuring that you have a successful life here on the earth realm. And if they can reach out to you through someone like me, that's something that they want to do. But there is an unseen war going on. So you've got your family members protecting you. And they don't necessarily touch on that, but they touched on the negative entities feeding off of people and also trying to take over their minds in the sense that, they can't do anything to us. They can appear to you right in front of you as some sort of demonic entity, creature, black shadow. They can't do anything, right? And I always tell people who can see those things, or the kids, I was like, tell them it's against the rules. Just
Right.
like stand there, because that's what I used to do. If something appeared to me, I'd be like, it's against the rules. And that would be my reaction to them. It wouldn't be like, oh my God, or no, it's against the rules. And then they would disappear, right? And
And
most times
so
they come back.
within those rules, right, they can't do anything to you necessarily, but they can try to influence you and get you to make bad choices or horrible decisions and do things. And that's really the goal, is to kind of trick you, isn't it?
Yeah, and in this show, when they're explaining it, they're showing like this dark puff of smoke going like sort of winding through. And it's interesting because when my mother was here at my apartment, she went to the bathroom and she told me that she saw like a black puff of winding smoke. She goes, I know you're not going to believe me. And I'm thinking, yeah, probably I am. She actually saw it. And I mean, my mother is not a medium and she's quite old now. Like I'm old, so she's even older, of course. She didn't have me when she was a teenager or anything. And I don't talk to her about what I do. I don't know if I ever will,
Mhm.
just because her family was just so against it. And she's been really good at ignoring like any really important things you should talk about. So I'm going to use that to my advantage and not talk about the medium thing. But she did tell me that. And she described it to me before I saw it on the Warrior Nun. And I was like, sometimes the writers there, like, they're on to something. They're, what they're saying about that and how these things will influence your minds. And I mean, you're seeing some pure evil behavior in many of the places across the world where there's a lot of rioting going on, and a lot of very, evil and cruel behavior is happening. And that has a lot to do with people who've consistently, fed their mind from the dark side of things instead of, being positive and, and good to their mental health,
Yeah, you can get into that spiral if you watch all the negative Twitter and feed yourself with negative stuff. It just circles in on itself. Tell us about, there's also a character in there called the Principality, which can actually enter our realm, but only for a limited period of time. How is that similar with other things that you've seen?
Well, we had some questions in one of the previous archived shows that eventually, of course, we'll be putting up on the podcast. And I recall somebody asking about that. And I said, well, the reason why you don't find anything like that here is because they have a limited amount of time they can spend in this realm. And I don't even know how I know that.
Right.
I was like, someone just asked the question. Sometimes I'll say, like my daughter was asking me a really deep question yesterday, and I just had to look at her and say, I don't know the answer to that. I haven't gone that deep. I mean, a lot of this stuff I'm picking up when I'm running over to the other side. It's not like they go, hey, this is the way it is. It's almost like I just get it by osmosis, because the more readings I do, the more information I get about this weird kind of stuff that, has nothing to do with a personal reading. It has to do more with, hey, there's these dark entities that they'll try to affect your mind with negative thoughts and bring you down and make you part of the problem in the world, part of, what makes it bad and evil. And this is one of the challenges that a lot of people face. And we're sort of seeing this at a really high level right now in the society. But I just wanted to confirm with people that it's because the Great Awakening is here. And this is why there's this unseen battle going on. And these principalities, they do have more power for sure, but they do have a limited amount of access to this realm for some reason. So you have heard of people actually being attacked. Well, those would be by higher principalities.
Okay.
And it's like, well, how come, there's not more of this? Or, well, it's like, well, because they have a limited amount of time that they can even survive in this realm, because their vibration just is not a good match with what.
And that sounds similar to, I think we've even mentioned that about UFOs, where certain UFOs will come in and they can only exist here in this realm. So they'll kind of blurp in and out. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That was one of the things. So, and I had never, honest to God, I'm telling you, I never thought about any of that kind of stuff before. So I know that's from the other side. But it was like when I was watching the show and they were bringing that up, and it was like almost like the people on the other side were going, look at that, look at that. Because remember, there's people who are like me, who are younger. And I mean, myself, when I was younger, I wrote a lot of stuff that came true.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating how what comes out in these TV shows, and we've even talked about like The Simpsons and some of these writers that seem to have something where they're getting these premonitions, and you see it in TV shows.
Yeah.
The next movie I wanted to talk about, this, I don't know if this was a very popular one, and it's kind of a classic ghost story where, but it's a little bit flipped because her family is actually the ghost. Oh, sorry, I should have said spoiler alert. But they're actually the ghost, and they don't know they're dead. So they're going through closing all these doors, and they're starting to hear the family that actually lives there. And then towards the end, they find out they're actually the ones that are dead. But this really stuck to me because Lost Shaker several weeks ago mentioned where he had somebody walking through his apartment and yelled hey, and woke him up, right? And so it made me think, Sam, what do ghosts see? How do they perceive the surroundings around them? Is it the world as it is today, or is it the world as it was when they died, like maybe in the 1800s?
It is as it is today.
Okay. And so that hopefully helps them realize they are dead, right? Because some of them probably don't most of them hopefully realize it, but not all of them do.
Well, it's a strange, and this would be, you're talking about earthbound people,
Yeah,
right?
Earthbound. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I get from it, because again, that's just one of the things I don't do is talk to earthbound
Yeah.
people. Some mediums do, though. It's just that
Uh-huh.
everyone has different jobs. So what I can say about that is it seems that there is a level of confusion. Some people know they're dead and just don't want to cross over, but other people seem to be confused about whether or not they're dead. And it's weird because, if they died, in 1850, they would have been wandering the earth realm since then. So the changes would have been very gradual
Yeah.
and
Okay.
stuff. And they might have thought that this was a natural thing. But again, you're like, well, how can they not know that they're dead? And I've often wondered that. But because I don't have conversations with them, because to me, it's, earthbound people, it's kind of creepy for me to talk to them. I prefer to talk to people who've already had their end of life review, their vibrations back higher, where you know what I mean? It's like I don't mind talking to them because they're on the other side now. They've had their, review, and it's a more of a positive experience for me. Whereas an earthbound person, you kind of feel when
Yeah.
you're when they're hanging around and stuff. And that's why God loved the people who that's their job, is to, go to haunted homes and deal with the dead owner who doesn't want to leave, because that's for real true. Like that stuff
Yeah.
really happens.
And as we learned from one of Barton's stories, the ones that haven't crossed over can still be a little bit deceptive, not always honest, as you would expect people on the other side to be. And so the other thing that I was wondering is, if you think about how we see the world, and those people that can see spirits or ghosts, they might see them kind of as translucent. Sometimes it might look like they're right in front of them, but it's almost like it's like kind of not right in our 3D realm. I was wondering if you can see, or if your people can tell you, how do ghosts, people who haven't crossed over that are dead, we can't see them and they can see everything perfectly? Or is it some sort of like hazy reality where they kind of know that, like, hey, Lost Shaker's there, I'm going to yell and wake him up? Is it kind of blurry, or what do you think they're seeing?
I don't think they see us the same way that we see each other,
Okay.
because they're in the in between realm.
Mhm.
Like they're stuck there, so they're here, but they're stuck in the in between. You know,
Okay.
that was the only piece of advice I gave to somebody one time was keep going,
Yeah.
don't stop.
Yeah.
They're stuck in the in between. Oh my god.
Well, you wonder if it's like in the movies where they like try, Whoopi Goldberg in the movie Ghost is probably a really good example of the medium, how her experience as a medium, where someone's yelling at her and she's looking around. But where they try to like touch something, and Patrick Swayze, and he touches it and he can't go through it, or he can't actually touch it. So yeah, it's interesting. Hopefully, I won't know anytime soon how that works.
Well, I don't even get the impression that they're in a state where they try to touch things
Mm.
or pick anything up. They're just not in the same type of, because us as humans, right? Like they're not human anymore.
Right.
They're souls, right? They've left their body, but they haven't crossed over to the other side. So we try to apply everything that's in our human mind to how things must be, and we apply it, to, you're like, oh, you'd be doing all this stuff. It's like, no, it's almost like they're in a sleepwalking state.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, interesting. All right. The next movie I wanted to touch on, I think you mentioned this yesterday in the live stream you had, is a movie with Charlize Theron called The Old Guard, and this is where kind of a group of mercenaries that have been they're essentially, I don't know if they're immortal, but they've been around for centuries doing, protecting people and protecting humanity. They have to take on a mission. But Sam, I think you had mentioned you'd seen that movie too. And was there anything that struck you about that movie?
Well, it was how the team of these immortals all dreamt about one another. And so when there was another one of them, I guess, being created, and it seems like they were all soldiers. That was what they were in their life on the earth realm, and then they were all killed as soldiers. And this is the storyline that they're brought back to life.
Okay.
And of course, this is not possible, right? This is just not done. It's against the rules, I guess, to put it plainly. People are like, oh, can't you raise it? It's like, dude, it's against the rules. Like, this is what being on the earth realm is. I mean, I'm going to fall over a cliff just like any one of yous are going to fall over a cliff. I mean, gravity, it's part of being in the earth realm. So, this stuff that they have in the movie, it can't happen. But some of the things that the characters were given in the way of their abilities, and one of them was that they would be able to find each other because they would have dreams and they would have knowings about each other. This was the other thing too, is that where they were all, really outcasts. And I think that up until recently, what did I say to my husband? I say funny things to him. I was like, yeah, I said hundreds of years ago, they burned us at the stake, and while we're running things now, because, we can read minds, and, it's like people, you're on tour. The lady who I used to get her emails a long time ago, because we have the same first three names for real. Her emails, and she's now booked for, she said, like years ahead for readings and stuff like that. So the thing is that the world has changed quite a bit. But when, they were showing how, they were treated differently and stuff, I was like, oh yeah, that would be it more like maybe 100 years ago or something, or a few hundred years ago when people were afraid. But now people are more interested than they're afraid.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I know one thing when you first joined the group, I had that same thing where I was having dreams about people. So that's a really interesting phenomenon.
Yeah.
We got time for a couple more. The other movie, I don't know if you did your homework or not. I sent you a clip to watch, but there's a movie called John Carter, or John Carter of Earth. This was a Disney movie, and it was kind of a box office flop, just because it was low revenue. But it's actually a pretty good story. And basically, a guy from the 1800s gets transported to Mars, and there's a war going on Mars that he gets involved in. But the interesting part about this is there's a race of beings called the Thurn, and they're very much like the Anunnaki, and they live for millennia, and they have such high technology that it almost seems like they're gods. They kind of appear and float in, and they can just change their shapes. And so, Sam, and that's one of the other, we have several questions about the Anunnaki in it tonight. But what did you think about the way that movie portrayed these beings that are, kind of messing with the humanity, so to speak?
Well, the clip that you sent me, I didn't get that they were really messing with. They just say that all societies, they get overpopulated, and then they divide, and then there's the big war, and this is just the way it goes, and we're just here. It's almost like the Mothman,
right?
How they're just there to sort of watch the disaster. Okay. And I guess, if I was one of the creatures in between and I was bored, maybe I'd do that too, right? It's just to me, because I just glean this information. I'm like, what are those things?
Well, early on in the movie, they come in and they give one of the sides a weapon that can, basically some technology that allows them to win the battle. And what they say is, we always help out the side that we can control the most, because they like to keep things in order and not let people get too elevated. So it's just an interesting concept that there is, that there could be beings at this level where they are beings, but their technology is so advanced that, you might perceive them as a god, right?
Yeah. And I think that that's the way it went down, tens of thousands of years ago, when we were visited by extraterrestrials that had some pretty advanced technology, and were even written about and called gods.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he was saying, though, what was interesting is, again, being brought up about this whole, feeding off of the dark energy that comes from people's minds. Yeah. So during this time of societal breakdown, they basically arrive to watch the show, but they also feed off of, because that's what he said, that they got something from that.
Okay.
And so I was like, yeah, it's a little bit of a mishmash of the way things actually are. But, he would be more of one of those things that's in between.
The in between. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Okay. And then two last movies quickly. One is, for those of you who don't know, one of my favorite hobbies is listening to Dogman and Bigfoot stories. And so, one of the things with the Dogman or these werewolf that you hear in these stories, people will encounter these creatures that are, from the in between. There's a movie, Van Helsing, and one of the common themes is people will say it looked just like the werewolf in Van Helsing. And Sam, I don't know if you saw those pictures, but did you get anything that's a good resemblance of the creatures from the in between?
No, you know what? Anything that I've ever seen, they've all been like quite decrepit and like that has some meat on its bones.
Yeah,
They've
they say
all
they're
been
very
like,
muscular. Yeah.
yeah, they've all been quite like skeletal, wiry, just very
Okay.
disgusting looking things. Whereas that is more like a beast and something that maybe, could have been created here in the earth realm. It just doesn't strike me
Okay.
as anything from, the in between.
Okay. Interesting. All right, and then last quick question: there are two movies. Everybody remembers the old one with called "Surviving the Game" with Ice-T, where he is a homeless guy and is kidnapped and then hunted on a private estate. And there's a new movie that came out in 2020 called The Hunt with a similar theme. Sam, any truth to that theme that people are actually captured and hunted? I know with the police raid that we saw in the Black Forest, and you mentioned that the other night. Does anything like that, do you think, happen on Earth on any sort of scale where people are hunted for fun?
No, not like how they're trying
Okay.
to, there might have been cases where, somebody has in one of the third world, more tribal countries, where there's still tribes where there would be somebody who's done something
Okay.
really bad and then they'll let them make a run for it, but hunt them down. But they're talking about, probably people paying money and,
Yeah.
to do this. And this is just like the tunnels of all the children trapped in underneath New York City. I mean, it's just a lie. It's not true.
Let's get to the
Yeah.
questions. We got 29 of them. All right. William Penn writes, for souls that turn left too many times, I think meaning making bad choices, are they given a life review or do they go straight to the left door to be reborn to some unlucky mother? Can they be redeemed?
Well, first of all, we're all treated the same, right? Whether you were a good person or a bad person here, we're all treated the same. We have our end of life review, and then you're enlightened. I mean, there's been people who were totally like terrible people when they were here, and the first thing they're doing is apologizing to their family member because it was after having their end of life review that they saw all of this and came to the realization, and now their vibration is back where it was again, right? It's embarrassing for us when we cross over and we do a crappy job on this realm. This is embarrassing. You wait in line for like 70 earth years to come down here and you don't even get to move up a level. I mean, some people move down. Like, how stupid are you, right? So, I don't know the full details on that. I'm just, telling you what I feel I know from doing my little runs back and forth, and then also just straight up asking the people on the other side what the story is on all that.
Okay. Yeah, and I think also just for other people that may be new to this, you've also mentioned that the karma doesn't exist. It's when you have your end of life review, you basically experience everything that you made other people experience, and that's really, you'll experience it, but it's not like you pay it back in some way.
Okay. Well, I'll just correct the karma thing before we have full blown riot.
Okay.
When a woo woo person says, "What the heck? What the hey?" No karma. No, there is karma. But what it is I think that people misunderstood, because what I'm seeing karma is that there are things that even though you were here for, let's say you get to live for 83 years.
Mm.
And in the 83 years you were here, you could not string together a decent love relationship. And some people it's a parent relationship, other people it's friendships, other people it's, work ethic, loyalty, like whatever the issue is, or a character flaw. and they just can't get it together, right? And that is, and it's carried over, and that's what I call karma, because then when you come back again with reincarnation, that is, that's your goal. Because when you have your end of life review, you're like, man, I was a really crappy friend. I was all about my family, and then, but I wasn't really a good friend. Oh, geez, yeah, I was kind of a user, or whatever it is that people go through, or a terrible parent. I worked too much, and then I, shoved all 5 of my kids in daycare, and and I had a nanny at night, and I don't know, whatever their issue is, whatever they see, and then they promise to do better and try harder the next time around. So that would be karma.
Okay, not the tit for tat that we kind of hear people say sometimes. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
I always say, if we lived in a if everything was fair, we'd live in a very different world.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Sam. Marnie writes, does witchcraft exist? I hear a lot about white and black magic, but is it witchcraft or just like law of intention or law of attraction? For example, regularly chanting, feeling, or visualizing the particular thing will happen to someone.
Yes, that does exist. Witchcraft does exist. There's a pretty severe price to pay for dealing in the black arts. And if you know anybody who's doing that, you can't stop people from doing that. They're going to do what they're going to do, but just make sure you stay out of the way. And remember that these things do not like us at all. And the people that they can draw in by doing their bidding, things flip around pretty darn quick. And, and by the time you figure it out, it's too late. So best be not doing that.
Okay. So essentially you're enlisting the help of things on the other side when you're doing witchery. It sounds like. You
are the things that are in between demonic forces, dark entities. Sometimes things are just like even when you're on a Ouija board, you're not necessarily going to you might just get an earthbound spirit, just wandering through, and then it gets attached to you, follows you home.
And that's an interesting idea of even, the white, well, I'm doing it with good intentions, or I'm enlisting, good spirits on the other side, because there's always that deception, right? Where the dark spirits can, pretend to be nice for a while and then try to shift you, right?
Yeah. Hey, listen, I completely get it when somebody's just so fascinated by, for example, a medium, and they really want to be a medium themselves. Listen, I get it, but you have to be born with it. And I do completely agree that you can have no real signs that you have these abilities, and then just one day it starts. Like, I do believe that can happen. So, that's why I would certainly make myself available to help somebody out if they had all of this stuff starting to happen all at once. And it wasn't a mental breakdown, because you can't turn off crazy, and crazy can't tell the future. So when you start being able to see future events, and you're talking about stuff that people were just talking about when you weren't even there in the room, and these things start to happen, sometimes you can be blindsided by that, because you've never had anything you're like, oh my gosh, I'm 28 years old and I've never had anything like this happen before. So that can happen. But if you do have the ability to speak to, to cross over, to speak to the people on the other side, you come with these very powerful spirit guides who will protect you. But if you're not, you don't come with spirit guides, right? What you have is your family, your tribe on the other side. And of course, we all have a guardian angel, because that's who carries us back and forth from our soul, from to down here to back, right? Everyone has a guardian angel. But if you're going to do this type, if you want to be a light worker, you need to have spirit guides. And this is why it's very dangerous when people start trying to play with this stuff. And man, you're in for a world of trouble if you get the attention of one of the principalities.
Okay. All right. Good information, Sam. Thanks for that. Crypto Mist writes, hello, Sam and Rudy. You have discussed the Anunnaki previously. Do the people on the other side say why they left our world? Also, the fact that they tinkered with human DNA and made human slaves, do you think that when they left, the elites continued to utilize the concept and the practice of slavery ended up through the ages with Egyptians, Vikings, Greeks, Romans, etc., into more recent centuries? It appears to have been a shameful constant. Thanks for both for all you do.
Okay, so just to review for the new listers, the Anunnaki are a race of aliens, extraterrestrials that many people believe arrived on the scene. Do you have an idea? Is it like 15,000 years ago or 10,000? Do you?
Yeah, it's like around thousands of years ago. I don't know, I have some off the top of my head, but yeah, definitely thousands of years ago.
Yeah. And it's interesting. My husband was watching a documentary and they were showing this cave that had just been recently opened. And there were like drawings on there of like UFOs and stuff like this. And this was like before airplanes even existed and stuff. And um, he said to me, he goes, "Oh my God." He goes, "If I had opened that up and looking at that," he goes, "I would just throw up." He goes, "It's just so, like, it just blows his mind that these things, like people saw these things like that many thousands of years ago. And it's like, oh yeah, well, there was a group that came here and they're not supposed to do that. Like they're not from this realm. Like this is against the rules. You're not supposed to mess with other societies." And so most of the UFOs that people see that are trying to get away or hide or um, they're not interacting with people because that's interfering, and they're scientific experiments. That's what they're here for. They're just observing. They're scientists and
Okay.
they're interested and curious, and that's all that's going on. But when you have a superior race come here and actually from my understanding, when people were asking me the questions and I was asking the people on the other side, well, what happened? Like, how did we come about? And there was hominids already here. And then what they did is they tinkered with the DNA
Okay.
and made humans, right? Because they needed slaves for mining gold and other metals that they needed for their ship.
Okay.
And for some reason, like materials, it was really important. So, anyways, they finished their time here. They got what they needed, and they tried to eliminate, the humans by sending that. That's the story of Noah,
Okay.
right? They tried to drown the humans, but we're a pesky bunch, not easy to get rid of. So a lot of those biblical stories, and these stories are also spoken about in other writings from other religions. My understanding is that there's quite a few things across the board that carry the same information, and so it all really fits together. And I think there's going to be a lot of this stuff uncovered over the next few years that's going to confirm a lot of the things that I'm talking about, that this really happened. This is where we came from. And
Okay.
we're all survivors. We were all slaves and we all survived.
If we have any scholars of the Vedic text, let me know, point me to some key stuff because I'd like to take a
Yeah.
look at those at some point. There's also a Charlize Theron movie called Prometheus, where they kind of deal with that, where you have these Anunnaki type creatures that seed Earth, and then they go and find them, and they're like, "Oh my God, they got out," and they try to kill them, right?
Right.
Cryptomist writes, "Do you think the Anunnaki are still alive in the universe or realms and could return to Earth? Thank you."
Well, I don't feel that they'll return to Earth, but I do feel like they're still in existence. I mean, I couldn't say that for sure, though. I mean, yeah, I don't get information on everything, but I will say for sure that they're not going to come back.
Jackie B writes, "I am curious about what information your guides tell you about Egyptians. Several people in the woo-woo say what is in history books is not true. How did they build pyramids? What are the pyramids used for? Where did their knowledge come from and why was it lost? Why did they like precious metals? Was it used for more than jewelry? Thank you, Sam and Rudy."
So the precious metals, as I mentioned before, were being mined because they needed them for their ship. And I don't think they had a supply back where they came from. So they came to Earth with a purpose, and they needed humans too, because the hominids were not smart enough. They had to have sort of higher level beings that they could utilize who could do this work. The pyramids are actually they provide electricity.
Okay.
This was I don't even know how to describe how they were used, but I just see it as a power source. Because I know that using the pyramids as burial, that's just a secondary use
Okay.
of the square footage, right? Because, what are you going to do? Oh, well, we might as well bury some rich people in there.
Okay.
Because, we have all that built anyway. So, anyway, and they had some ideas and beliefs about the afterlife as well.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, you wonder if all those things, the tunnels or openings that come out of the pyramids, maybe there were attachments that used to be connected in there somehow. Cool.
Yeah.
Drill and Phil writes, I have been doing kung fu for some years and has yet to be able to release a fireball from my hands. What is your take on chi and meridians in which chi travels through, Sam?
Well, I don't know much about meridians, but I do know that we have chi, and I do believe that this is not a skill that you can just pick up. It's a little bit like being a medium. You have to have the ability to do that, to create, to be able to take your chi and start a small fire with it. It is possible. This is not a lie. But
Okay.
it's not something that everybody can do.
One fun thing you can do, we've done this with my family, is where you can move energy through your body and you can start to feel it if you just imagine like a big ball and move around. And like three of us will sit and put our hands out and then we will move energy and you can feel it like a pulse going through you. And so that's kind of a fun experiment if you ever have someone to try that with. It's kind of neat. But yeah, we're not starting any fires. All right. Raven writes, hello, Sam and Rudy. Do supercomputers communicate with the other side? A lot of them have developed AI and can think independently on their own. Have they developed the ability to reach the other side? It would be interesting to have that app on our iPhone that can do that.
What? Even I'm being replaced by technology? No way. Not possible. No, it's not possible. Sorry, there are limits to technology.
The closest thing I've seen is that, what's they call it, the ghost box, where they try to get spirits to talk through those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I was telling somebody the other day, don't play with ghost boxes.
Okay.
Those attract like spirits from like around like in your vicinity. Yeah. I would be like, no. If somebody was like, oh, I have a ghost box, I'm going to turn it on. I'd be like, no.
Stay away. Yeah, because they can impact electronics a little bit. All right. William Penn writes, when our souls go back home, is it our choice to come back to the earth realm?
Yes.
Okay. So we can choose. And then William also writes, will a new religion form in our lifetime, or will we see a rise in Christian Gnosticism?
I think that there'll be a rise in spirituality.
Okay.
Yeah. I think there'll be a lot of people like me found. I think there's a lot of people like me who are out there and undiscovered. And we get a lot of information from the other side about how it is, right? And people are more likely to listen to somebody who crosses over there all the time because it's our job.
Yeah.
And like I said before, you do glean some information in your travels over there with, how it is, just so that everything won't be as much of a big surprise.
Okay. Tanya Oz writes, hi, guys. Too many people still do not have basic needs met. What does the other side say about solving problems such as homelessness around the world? Thank you.
Well, that's up to us. That's our task at hand. And I don't know if we'll ever solve it 100%, but I do feel like after we go through this really hard time, and it depends on where you live, right? Some places it could be like 10 years. Other places just a couple, like 4 years. But when we come out the other side, like things will be better for most of the world.
Thanks. D-Tron writes, how many of these giant skeletons are real? What are they hiding from the public? Will the public ever get the truth? And he has a link to a story with, I think, just some stories of skeletons of previous old giants, I guess.
That is true. There was a race of people who were oversized that came from, I mean, they even talk about them in the Bible, the Nephilim,
Yeah.
right? And that was, just a result again of the dickering with the DNA.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I do believe that those are true. And just like anything, you like the crop circles, you're going to get people who are um, going to make stuff up. So yeah, not all the crop circles are real. So I mean, if you found that there was like a skeleton faked before, well, I mean that's going to happen because people are going to. Well, I mean, I was watching that Pawn Stars, and somebody brought in a sword that was sold to them, but I mean, it was a fake. But they tried to make it. They tried to age it, make it really old and stuff like that. But did these swords from the 11th century exist I guess it was from the Crusades, so maybe it was the 14th century, but these things do exist, but this sword happened to be a fake. So I will tell people that yes, there are some findings out there that are false, but the other ones, they are real, and that's what spurred the false ones on, because it was either to get attention, draw like tourism to the site, or to make money.
Jimbo writes, it's funny, you kind of answered this question already during the during the meetup, but which often happens. Hi, Sam. Some questions about guardian angels. Do guardian angels exist? Do all of us have one? Do they protect us from harm, even with accidents? Will come out alive or unharmed? Jimbo.
Yes, we all have at least one guardian angel. And that is because when we come down here, we come with our guardian angel they bring us. And when we pass away, when we leave our bodies, our guardian angel brings us over to the other side as well. And that's where we see our family. Sometimes our family, like they'll sort of come in, we'll sort of see them. But what we're doing is we're seeing the other realm.
Okay.
Right? Because some people are like, oh, dad was talking to mom and mom died 10 years ago from cancer. And, we're happy we know they're together. And it's like, yeah, you probably did see mom because, she was just there in the other realm and she's just waiting with her little catcher's mitt there, waiting to see him again, because it's a nice reunion on the other side when people pass away.
Yeah, I think my grandfather thought he saw his brother a few times. And Sam, are guardian angels able to protect us? I mean, there's always stories about weird things happen, and they probably can't protect us from everything. But are there instances where they can protect us?
Sure, and I don't know why sometimes things happen and then other times they don't. It doesn't have anything to do with being, good or bad, or I think a lot of it has to do with luck and a little bit of I don't know if serendipity is the right word when it comes to your guardian angel being able to step in and save you from harm. I would almost just give more credit to our family members who have passed over on the other side, because they will try to get ideas into your head and messages through to you, in order to keep you from maybe getting in that vehicle, because they see you getting in an accident that's going to keep you from achieving your goals.
And we just had where I live a house fire where a police officer and a fire chief just happened to be very near, and they actually ran in and saved two children that were stuck in there that probably otherwise wouldn't have made it out. And you think about things like that maybe the guardian angels maybe they can kind of influence some other people to help you out. They may not come in and save you, but they do what they can sometimes. All right. Rosanna Monaco writes, hi, Sam and Rudy. How do you actually communicate with people from the other side? For example, how do you communicate with someone who never spoke English, but instead a foreign language while they were here on Earth? Thanks.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I've actually done very good readings with people where their family members that I'm talking to never spoke English. But it's like you're getting the information in your mind. So there's no language with that. And I always describe it as like Pictionary. Yeah. So there's no language required. It's very rare that I clairaudibly hear words. Sometimes I do, and that's always very cool when it happens because then I know I'm exact. Just like when I did a reading for a guy who was, I asked him how old he was, and he said 59. Because before I asked him how old he was, or I think I said, your dad is here and he's telling me 58. I said, what? I said, it's probably like your age. And he said, oh, he said, I'm 59, but my dad was always off by a year. So I think I mentioned that story on one of the live streams because I thought that was cute because he said he didn't remember it until that moment when I was telling him I was talking to his dad, and everything was linking up to who his dad was and all this stuff. And some of the things that we talked about that were personal. And then that's when that came up. And I thought that was kind of cool as well. And, but he actually, I'm pretty sure like he said the numbers to me. I'm pretty sure he said 58 that I heard. I'd have to go back and listen to, because I taped it, I videotape it. And anyways, I'm pretty sure that I heard that, but mostly it's like Pictionary.
Matt Kurtz writes, I want to make sure of some things I believe I've heard Sam say previously. That if a soul had lived in a certain place and time, let's say ancient Egypt, for example, some of those places or structures will get permanently stamped on the soul, like a subconscious memory in our human lives. Is this correct? Also, is it the case, or also, if this is the case, are some of these memories brought to the forefront in certain incarnations because they're supposed to guide us in some way? Thanks, you two, for all you do.
Well, that was a really long question.
Have you ever been somewhere and you're like, this seems really familiar, like in a foreign country? Yeah, maybe I think that's what he's getting at.
Yeah, so when they talk about incarnations and that kind of thing, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I know what they mean now. But I do think that where many people are going through the reincarnation process, I mean, you could have been there before.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I feel very comfortable in the desert, and I don't know why that is. Yeah, I can't explain that because I wasn't born here. The cream off the top writes, hi, Sam and Rudy. Very many celebrity musicians have died at the age of 27. For instance, Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, and Jimi Hendrix. Is it simply a cultural phenomenon, or is there some connection behind these deaths? Thanks so much.
It is a statistical anomaly.
Interesting. Okay. Cat Lady AZ writes, hi, Sam. When you do a reading, there are different levels of stories. Are there different levels of stories with various levels for the potential coming to pass? For example, a certain goal with unforeseen path versus a potential goal to help guide you in the right direction.
Yeah, it's interesting that she asked that because I was thinking about that today. And I see this when I'm doing readings and I see the potential. And one of the things that makes me a good medium is that I know what the actual is. So some people I'll tell them something and I'll be like, I know that that's scary, but I'm telling you this because if you follow what I tell you, then you're not going to get this. And I actually, if people go back and look at the meetup I had with Trisha very early on my channel, I put that on the Samantha Jane channel, the meetup that I had with Trisha. Okay. And she was one of the people that she had a health issue, but I saw that she was going to do something about it.
Okay.
Right. And then it was confirmed because she ended up, when she went to the hospital, and they even said the same thing to her that I told her, that she would really have some big problems in 7 years.
Okay.
She didn't stop, this and that kind of thing. And yeah, so, but then other people, I don't say anything because I look at it and I'm like, oh no, okay, they're not going to listen to me.
Okay. All right. And you talked about those nexus points, I think, that sometimes you have to go through.
Yes.
All right. Two more questions. YS64 writes, hi, Sam and Rudy. Keeping with the Anunnaki theme, what is the origin of the different races on Earth? Was it just a different source, mammals, or was there a purpose to this? Tower of Babel? ?
Oh, they have a question about the Tower of Babel?
I don't know what the Tower of Babel reference is, but really, I guess, what was the what's the cause of different races on Earth? Was it just evolution, or do they all come from the same starting point?
I think when they were originally making the people, they made everybody, they did make some different races, and then it just evolved over time. But yeah, we like literally all come from the same, we're all from the same root. We're just different branches.
Okay. Yeah, she wants to know if Bigfoot is real.
Yes, Bigfoot is real.
A creature from the in-between, I believe, as you've described it.
Yes, that's right. Exactly how I described it.
All right. Well, thanks for your time tonight, Sam. This was great, and we'll see you in 2 more weeks.
Thanks to everyone for hanging out.